Hi children, now we are going to discuss chapter 14 Mughal Empire. Mughals came from the Central Asia countries like Uzbekistan and Mongolia. The Mughals created an empire between 1550 and 1700 AD and expanded it from around Delhi to all over the entire subcontinent. Every year, the Prime Minister of India addresses the nation on Independence Day from the Red Fort in Delhi. Once upon a time, this Red Fort is the residence of the Mughal empires. The Mughal Empire founded by the Babur in 1526 AD in Panipat. He defeated the Sultan of the Delhi, Ibrahim Lodi, and captured Delhi and Agra. Look at the picture. This is a great monument of the Mughals, Red Fort, which was built by the Shah Jahan in 1638. Important Mughal rulers were Babur, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan and Aurangzeb. Babur, he ruled 1526 to 1530 AD. In 1526 AD, he defeated Ibrahim Lodi of Delhi Sultan and established control over Agra and Delhi. He introduced cannons and guns in Indian warfare. Next, Humayun, he ruled 1530 to 1556 AD. Sher Khan defeated Humayun, forcing him to flee to Iran. Humayun received help from the Safavid Shah. He recaptured Delhi in 1555 AD but died in an accident the following year. Next, Akbar. Akbar was very famous ruler among the Mughal rulers. He ruled 1556 AD, 1605 AD. Akbar was 30 years old when he became the emperor. He rapidly conquered Bengal, Central India, Rajasthan and Gujarat. Thereafter, he also conquered Afghanistan, Kashmir and portion of the Deccan. Next, Jahangir. He ruled 1605 to 1627 AD. Military campaign started by Akbar continued. No major events in his rule. Next, Shah Jahan. He was one of the famous rulers among the Mughal rulers. He ruled 1627 AD, 1658 AD. Mughal campaigning continued in the Deccan. He faced many revolts by nobles and chiefs of his empire. Shah Jahan's sons fought among themselves for the post of the Sultan. Aurangzeb was victorious and his three brothers were killed. Shah Jahan was imprisoned for the rest of his life in Agra. Aurangzeb was the last ruler of Mughal rulers. He ruled 1658 to 1707 AD. In his rule, Guru Tej Bahadur, Govind Singh and Shivaji and his own son Akbar revolted against him. Shivaji succeeded in establishing an independent Maratha kingdom. Aurangzeb conquered Bijapur in 1685 AD and Golconda in 1687 AD. After death of Aurangzeb, his sons fought among themselves for the post of Sultan. Look at the map. This is the Akbar's empire. Now we are going to discussing about Mughal rulers' relations with other rulers. In India of those times, there were several kings and chiefs in all parts of the country. The Mughals want to bring them under their control. The Mughals became powerful. Many other rulers also joined them voluntarily. Example, Rajputs. The Mughal sultans married Rajput women. The Mughals married princes of many of the local rulers as a mark of friendship. The mother of the Jahangir was the daughter of the Rajput ruler of Amber. Now it is called modern Jaipur. The mother of the Shah Jahan was a daughter of the Rajput ruler of Jodhpur. Now we are going to discussing about the Mansabdars and Jagirdars. The Mughal rulers recruited some kinds of people for their work. These people were enrolled as a Mansabdars. That means as a rank holder. They were directly under the control of the emperor. Mansabdars could allocate any work for them to do, like gardening his palace, governing the province, conquering a new kingdoms, and suppress the revolts. Look at the picture. It shows Mansabdars on march with his servers that means horse riders. The Mughals developed a political system in which the Mansabdars would not act independently but follow the orders of the emperor. You may remember that Nayakas in Vijayanagara Empire could become independent and powerful and declare themselves as a kings. But here Mansabdars they can't declare as independent kings. They should control under the emperor. Here the Sultan constantly transferred the Mansabdars from one place to another place every 2 years or 3 years. Thus the Mansabdars could not become a settled and powerful in any place. The Mansabdars maintained specific number of horse riders or cavalrymen. The Mansabdars brought his cavalry men for review, got them registered, their horses branded, and then received money to pay them as a salary. A Mansabdar's son could not become a Mansabdar automatically. That is, it was not hereditary. The emperor decided whether to appoint the son as a Mansabdar. In fact, he even took over all the property of the Mansabdars on his death. Mansabdars received their salaries as a revenue assignments called Jagirs, which were somewhat like Vijayanagara Nayakas. They could only collect the revenue due from their Jagirs, villages, and sent to the emperor. The Jagir was administered by the other officials directly under the emperor. These officials tried to ensure that the Jagirdars agents did not collect more from the farmers than permitted. The Jagirs too were constantly transferred every 2 years or 3 years from one place to another place. In Akbar's time, these Jagirs were carefully assessed so that their revenue were roughly equal to the salary of the Mansabdars. The main source of the revenue of Mughal emperor taxes. The Mughal rulers collected taxes from the peasantry on their produce. Akbar's revenue minister Todarmal carried out a careful survey of crop fields. The price and area calculated for cultivation a 10 years period. Each provinces were divided into revenue circle with its own schedule of revenue rates for individual crops. This revenue system was called Japt. Now we are going to discussing about the Jamindars. This term first time used by the Mughal emperors. These are the intermediaries between the rulers and peasants. The main duty of the Jamindars was to collect the taxes from the peasants and traders. They were locally headmen of villages or powerful chiefs. The Jamindars were not appointed by the Mughal emperors, but they were adjusted on hereditary basis. That is, the son succeeded when the father died. Jamindar system quite opposite of Mansabdar system. In Mansabdar system, Mansabdars appointed by the emperor, but here Jamindars were not appointed by the emperor. They often acted as the representatives of the local people in dealing with the Mughal officials. In some areas, the Jamindars exercised a great deal of power. Sometimes Jamindars and peasantry together revolt against the Mughal rulers. Now we are going to discussing about the Akbar's religious policy. The broad features of the administration were laid down by Akbar and were elaborately discussed by his friend and member of his court Abul Fazl in his book The Akbar Nama. While Akbar was at Fatehpur Sikri near Agra during the 1570s, he started discussing religious with the Muslim scholars, Brahmins, and Roman Catholic churches and Zoroastrians. He was interested in the religion and social customs and different people. Akbar wanted to bring together people of different religions. This eventually led Akbar to the idea of Shal-i-Kul or universal peace. This idea of tolerance did not discriminate among people of different religions in his kingdom. Look at the picture. Akbar's holding discussion with the learned individuals of different religious sects in his Ibdat Khana. The Mughal Empire in the 17th century and after. The administrative and military efficiency of the Mughal Empire led to economic and commercial prosperity. International visitors and travelers described as a land of wealth. The enormous wealth and resources commanded by the Mughal nobility made them extremely powerful group of people in the late 17th century. As the authority of the Mughal emperor slowly declined, and their servants, Mansubdars, announced their areas as a small kingdoms. In the coming class, we will discuss about chapter 7, handicrafts and handlooms.